The sweet, the sweet.
Something smooth and easy out.
I'm all for it.
Let me know what you think. You know, I need those peer ears.
Absolutely.
What I give you since you left
Oh yeah.
is all my time together.
That's right, we're together here at the Sweet, y'all. Again, I'm the president of hip hop, Courtland W. Hankins III. This is Alfred Obiese.
Alfred
Obiese, accent on the ESA.
Yeah.
Alright, my man. Alright, he's producer and author, right, of the book You Made It a Hotline. A great book. We're gonna get into this and get into the mind of Alfred Obiese. Yeah, you got it, alright? In a moment. So,
Jack is dope, by the way.
oh, you give it the thumbs up?
Absolutely.
My man. Alright. So we turn it down a little bit. We just let it play for a little undercurrent. And we get right into the conversation.
Okay.
Thank you, audience, for tuning in. We are live right here in the South Bronx, the birthplace and the home of hip hop. All right. So, Mr. Obiese.
Yes, sir.
Before we get into the book, I just want to start off by saying, when I say hip hop, what do you say?
That's a big one. That's everything. Like hip hop is everything. It's life, culture, it finances, it's a way. It's a moral code. It's essentially it's a lifestyle. It's a culture. So hip hop to me is it's a small word, but it's probably the biggest word that for me growing up in this country.
Okay.
It's meant a lot. It's meant a lot. So
That's big.
So
That's big. I think a lot of people don't really. I think we feel how big hip hop is, but a lot of times we don't really are as aware as maybe in the frontal lobe of how much hip hop is a part of our lives and our world.
It's like oxygen when it's so prevalent and it's so all encompassing. You kind of take it for granted. You don't see it for what it is when it's
Right.
everything from the way you dress to the way you talk.
Exactly.
So-
And if it's not there, it's like, oh, how would life
Exactly.
exist?
How would life be without? I can't even imagine how things would be without hip hop.
Exactly. Well, great answer, right? And I think
Thank you.
all the hip hoppers out there would understand that and can relate to that. Now I want to get into, before we get into, kind of picking your brain on a lot of other different subjects that are, hip hop is everything, so it won't be outside of hip hop. But it'll be outside of what we most may traditionally think are within the realms of hip hop, right?
Gotcha.
But hip hop is expansive, and as we're growing and expanding, we're taking hip hop with us, right? Okay. This is the book right here. You Made It a Hot Line. The Most Influential Lines in Hip Hop, Volume 1 by Alfred Obiese. All right? What's this book about?
Fairly self-explanatory. But essentially, the book is about the most influential lines in hip hop, not from a sales perspective, not from a dope perspective, but from a literal impact it's had on the culture, on the community, within and outside of that. So again, certain lines that are in the book, it originated in hip hop, had no intention of becoming something that you would use as an everyday parable 25, 30 years down the line. But it's like that, and it's the way it is, comes up in everyday vernacular. Today was a good day comes up in everyday speak. So again, that's what I'm saying. It's these lines. It's to the point of hip hop being all encompassing.
Right.
It's something that you take for granted. You don't even know where it stemmed from. It's just the way you speak. Like you don't know where good morning and good night came from. You just say good morning. You just say good night. You don't know the origin, the etymology. Who was the first person that said salutation should?
Right.
We don't know that, but we actually are at a point in time where we have so much influence over over basically how we live, and then we actually have the ability to chronicle the people who are creating the way that we live our lives. And I'm like, okay, how many of these lines that are influential to hip hop outside of hip hop exist? And has anyone taken another unspoken rule of hip hop is the originality perspective?
Right.
Has anyone ever tried to chronicle the lines that are influential, not just highest selling or dopest or
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, so to me, it was a challenge, and it was something that I believe needed to be done.
I know it definitely. When you talk about that, it's got to be a challenge, and it's one of those things when you're coming up with the most influential lines in hip hop. You can go with, and I know you've been, because when I went through the list here, right, and I won't go through every, we'll leave that for the listeners to go out here, for the audience to go out here and buy. But we'll go over a couple of them, right? But I know you've been challenged, and I know you've had the conversation of, son, where's Rakim? Where's Nas? But these, you had your own formula, and you break it down in the book, right?
Absolutely.
How have you handled some of the conversation where those are challenging you and like, hey, how did this make it and not that make it?
I even addressed that in the book, but I still got the the flack for that. It is not a composition of my most favorite MCs, the most prolific MCs, or anything of that nature. Part B, there's a volume 2. There's possibly a volume 3. Like, there's no way I was going to write an anthology out the gate. So I'm like, okay, let me break this up into parts.
Right.
You can understand the concept. People are going to have, and oddly enough, those kinds of questions drive the intrigue of, all right, I don't know who you are from a can of paint, but what makes me think I should even listen to your hip-hop? I got friends with hip-hop opinions. Who are you? They'll get through a few lines, they'll be like, I don't know why you did that. They'll agree with the majority of it, but then they'll come at me with the same questions that you asked. Where's this guy? Where's that guy? And I'm like, trust me, I love the culture as much as you do. I've been in it for as long as you have.
Right.
I know exactly where that guy is on my list. It's also not a listicle in order of the most influential to the least influential. There isn't. It's random. It's random. These are just lines that are influential to the culture.
Right.
So whether Rakim goes first or Drake goes last means absolutely nothing as it relates to the influence of the culture. Okay. As long as it's like that and that's the way it is, and YOLO will still be prevalent or as prevalent as when they from inception.
Right.
You made the cut.
You know, it's interesting because you said about simple words and words we use in greetings or salutations or whatever. Good night, good morning. We don't know where that came from.
At all.
We don't know the etymology. Who's the first person that actually came up with that statement and how it caught on, right? I was talking to my production assistant, right, and she was saying how as we were looking over this, and of course we each had our what. Oh, that's a good one. What? Oh no, we got to challenge him on this, right? But there was a little Kim line where she was like, "I used to be scared of her," right? That made it, right? And she was like, "You know what? When the girls are together, that's something that's always kind of said, right?" So it's to your point of like, it has become part of the conversation or just part of something that when there's a relevant situation, that line is automatically part of the conversation that comes up and everybody understands
And
and
there
relates.
so many instances of it. I'm using an aged instance in that it happened about a couple of years ago, but the whole Birdman Charlemagne thing.
Right.
Put some respect on my name. You know, if that wasn't a rap song, it would be influential. But not even that aspect of it. He came in, the interview didn't go the way it was supposed to go. Birdman leaves. Charlemagne goes. What's the Jay-Z? And I'm actually forgetting the line that he says. Where basically Jay-Z is like, crap, I can't believe I can't remember it. But there was a Jay-Z line, and he's basically stated after that interview.
Okay.
And it was perfect for the situation.
During the interview or after the interview?
Right after the interview, and like grand opening, grand closing.
Okay. Oh, that Charlemagne said.
That Charlemagne said.
Right.
So again, if you don't know where it stems from,
right,
you just think Charlemagne said grand opening, grand closing,
right,
not realizing that it's a reference to a point of something big coming to an abrupt end. That was supposed to be a big interview with Birdman.
Right.
Didn't go. It opened quick. It ended quick.
Just as quick, right?
And grand opening, grand closing. If you're familiar with hip hop, you're rooted in the culture. All he had to say was that to know what he meant. He didn't have to say, "Well, we planned to have a fantastic interview, but it didn't."
Right. Exactly.
It summed everything up. Like, how'd your day go? Today was a good day. everything went your way. I don't need to know that the blimp said your name. I know
Right.
what that means. I have the visuals that represent those lyrics. So again, like it's one of those things where we literally end up speaking using hip hop lines, and if you don't realize where it comes from, it's just part of the. And these people work hard, so I think they deserve the credit of at least claiming the culture that we created.
Oh, no question, no question, no question. And grand opening, grand closing. Now, you're a Brooklyn guy. We'll get into a little bit of your Brooklyn roots, right? That's went from Jay-Z within rap and hip hop, but from a Chris Rock, another Brooklyn cat, you know, comedy skit, where it was like, okay, talk about Black Club, grand opening, grand closing,
Yeah,
right? So that's
yeah.
a Brooklyn thing. Okay, think about that. So I give it up to Brooklyn.
Well,
There's a lot of Brooklyn in here, right?
It started in the Bronx, though, so no matter how far you go, you always got to come back home.
There you go. Great answer. My man. I tell you this much. And looking here, right? Biggie's line, being broke at 30, give a nigga the chills. Right? Now, I tell you that much. That line right there, right? That went from 30 to 40, right? We had to remix that, right? So
It evolved.
it evolved, right? So, but this is a wonderful book. Great conversation,
Thank you.
right? Very well written,
Thank you. Appreciate
very witty, right? That made me say this guy. I said Alfred. He's real intelligent, smart guy. The way you put all of this together. I can't wait for number 2.
it. Yeah.
Now, what's the answer to people who say, "Where's Nas?"
Nas is definitely number 2.
Nas is in number 2.
And again, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna bust all my guns in volume 1.
There you go. There it is. And
Hip-hop.
it's good conversation. To make
It's
the
good,
wave.
exactly. It's a
Exactly.
conversation. But where's KRS-One? Volume 2. Where's Rakim? Volume 2.
Volume
Where's
2.
Nas? Volume 2. So like, all the people that you swear according to your own criteria should have been in Volume 1 are in Volume 2 based on the author's criteria.
Okay.
So
All this was your criteria. Did you kind of take anything? Did you have like a panel of people that you said, this is my trusted circle, and we'll kind of decide?
I never had like a focus group, a trusted panel. It was just one of those things. Like I said, a lot of my friends. I'm a hip hop producer, so I've been in it, but I'm not also that. My ego is big, but I don't think it's big enough to just be like, all right, this is what I says, this is law, blah blah blah. So when I would run certain lines by my friends who grew up in it, who are producers, who are like into the culture, the pushback was minimal.
Okay.
So it wasn't like, again, if I give you 21 lines in a book and your issue is with 3, 4,
Right.
in any mathematically,
Right.
hip hop wise, I just got I'm in a higher
Yes, you did.
percentile.
Yes, you did. And there's no way you're gonna get 21 out of 21. with everybody. It's just impossible.
Like
Absolutely
Nas, Biggie, and Jay-Z wouldn't agree on
Right.
So
Exactly.
the fact that I'm getting a majority, so that was endearing to me, to be honest.
Why'd you pick 21? Why'd you come up with that number?
It was purely random.
Random.
It was purely random.
21
Like
hotline.
initially,
I take 21 MCs. Put them in a line.
should have added one more and made it 22 teams to bring it back to Brooklyn.
See, there you go.
But yeah, I mean, initially when I comprised the list, I got up to like 85.
Okay.
And I'm like, all right, wow,
Start breaking it,
that's
right?
then I'm like, all right. Then, as always, I'm an artist too, so I wrote what inspired me the most, like what I felt
Right.
if I'm in a particular frame of mind. And there's a lot of like hip hop. There's a lot of subtext to it, so it's not just the line. It's not just what it's about, but essentially it's the emotion and the sentiment that it evokes and what's behind it.
Right.
In order to be influential, it's just not just a question of being witty. There's basically going to speak to a sociological component that resonates in everyone that makes them gravitate to that line.
Okay.
So it's like, okay, what if I felt like this was a good day? If I was just in a terrible way? If I felt like you only have one life to live? Maybe that's the day that inspired me to write the yellow line. Maybe that's the day that, like, you know what I mean? So there's it's purely inspirational driven in that I feel like when I feel it, I write it, and I think most of the times when you're in the moment emotionally,
Right.
you tend to put out the best product.
There you go. As an artist, my artistic and creative side agrees with that 120%. Now, out of these 21 lines that you picked out, right, and chose to put in the book, is there a number one for you?
In the book?
Well, I figure your personal number one would be here.
Oddly enough,
If you have a number one.
I have a personal number one. It's not on the list.
Because you don't think it's as influential to the whole?
I don't think it's as influential as the ones that are on the list.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's
personal
just
to
to
you.
me. My personal line is, Jay-Z. You are who you are, player, and you was who you was before you got here.
Oh yeah, that's a dope. That's a hot one. That's a sticky one.
It speaks to who you are as a person. It speaks to, like, I don't need to be in every. You don't need to see as someone in every single situation to know how they would move. Like, I'm gonna take a subset and I'm gonna use that as a representative, and then I'm gonna make my decision based on that subset. So, and it's proven itself to be true over and over and over again. With that said, just because it's my personal doesn't mean it
necessarily
mean that it has the influential impact across the board.
Okay.
Because I'm measuring impact by seeing it occur in other mediums outside of hip hop.
Right.
How people use it. So I'll hear grand opening, grand closing more than I'll hear you are who you are player.
Exactly.
I'll hear I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman more than I'll hear. So based on those criteria, I can't just go, yo, I love it, so it makes the cut. Like, I have to be as impartial as I humanly can, given the fact that it's my opinion.
Exactly. Okay. Well, that's good, fair, and honest of you, brother. Right.
I tried, but there's Brooklyn in the book, so.
Okay. Like you said, you tried.
I tried.
Right. Okay. Again, my production assistant was really, she was loving the fact the way you made it like a notebook,
composition book,
composition book, exactly. Rhyme book, if you will, right? The first rhyme book,
literally,
right? And back at the periodic table and all of that, just like back in the school days.
Yeah.
And I remember when we were, we've known each other for a little while now, a couple of years maybe, right? And when I was telling you about the president of hip hop, and brainstorming on that, you said I'm the dean of hip hop, right? And when I looked at it, made me think of it again when I pulled out the book, right? And I said the notebook, the writing and all. I said, oh yeah, some real, Dean Smith right there, right? But let's talk about, because I've been a hip hop educator, and I had a great class that I taught the hip hop arts to, or utilized hip hop to as a teaching tool to our youth and mainly our middle school. But when you mention the dean of hip hop, right? That shows that you have an appreciation for the educational aspect, right? How do you feel about hip hop and its educational attributes and how it can be used maybe in an educational platform? If you have put any thought into that at all.
I put a lot of thought into that.
Okay.
I think.
And before that, where can you made it a hotline volume 1 be
it can absolutely be purchased One Track Mine, mine.com. You can also get it on Amazon. So those two.
Okay, so I'll post that within the video. So exactly. Okay, so back to the education.
So hip hop is an educational tool mechanism when utilized correctly, and I don't mean the hokey. Okay, I'm going to turn the periodic table. I'm going to make the periodic table rhyme, and that's my definition of utilizing hip hop as a teaching mechanism. That's very broad based. That's very visceral. That's almost an insult to what hip hop is as a teaching tool. If you're going to use a tool as a tool, you use Shakespeare, the body of work, and you take the message and extrapolate from that. To that end, if I'm trying to get a kid who grew up in this generation to relate to a certain message of, and again, messages, it's been the same pervading theme from inception to now. Humans are humans, we're going to have the same issues, struggle, rise, triumph, like love, hate, blah, blah, blah. So if I'm trying to teach a kid in this era and convey a message to him that's relatable, maybe using Old English Shakespeare would not be the best tool to do it. Maybe I can extrapolate what the theme is from Hamlet and find a 50 Cent song that's a corollary.
Okay.
So if you're, now he can relate to 50. Now he can relate to being stabbed behind. I'll just take Julius Caesar and compare it to like when 50's beefing with G Unit and him and Young Buck used to be men, and now there's a betrayal thing going on and blah. I can find a way if I'm close enough to the medium and I care enough about the people I'm teaching to extrapolate the same message and make it more relatable. Most of the times, it's the same message 90% of the time, but where you're getting it from, the only reason you're getting it from there is because there's something to the way that it's being delivered that speaks to you. So that's what I mean as it being a teaching tool for modern day society, and far beyond that, but specifically as it relates to if you're teaching in the urban community and are purveying what they do in their spare time is listening to hip hop, don't chastise them by coming into class with gold ropes and trying to rap at them. Use their music in a way that they understand to get the messages across, to get your point across. And that's just, I think that's the main way one can utilize hip hop as a teaching tool.
I totally agree. I think there is a movement, a hip hop education movement. It's growing kind of slowly. Right, because even when I was teaching, there was some resistance. There was some resistance, and it was successful, but it still hadn't. In terms of the higher administration, there's still, so we still have a little time before they're actually ready to fund,
Oh, no, absolutely. And I also do believe that's a generational thing, where hip-hop is of the age of middle management. You know what I mean? So it's like as we grow and as we implant ourselves in certain arenas and certain districts, now instead of having teachers who grew up in hip hop, you're gonna have principals, you're gonna have superintendents, board of directors, people who actually have decision making ability, who understand what it is. So it's a time thing, but as long as again they stay true to the art and they recognize what the art has the ability to do. If they truly understand what it has the ability to do, then I don't see how you don't utilize hip hop as a teaching tool.
No question, I agree. Can we go to Brooklyn for a little bit?
Absolutely.
And just your youth. In terms of growing up, what part of Brooklyn are you from?
So when I first got to Brooklyn, I used to live on predominantly Crown Heights, Flatbush. I grew up used to live on St. John's, used to live on Union between Utica and Rochester, and actually left Brooklyn in '86 and moved to Far Rockaway.
Okay, all the way out there.
All the way out there, but came back for high school.
Okay.
So I went to Tech, which is Brooklyn Tech, which is in Fort Greene. So although I was in Far Rockaway, I slept in Far Rockaway. I spent a large percentage of my time in Tech. And then after I graduated Tech, I was hanging out in the sky. So Brooklyn has been. You know what I mean? Far Rockaway absolutely had a huge influence on me. But
shout out to Far Rockaway.
I love Far Rockaway. I love my peoples, but like Brooklyn is kind of where I touch ground. That's where my heart has always been. That's where I was raised. Kind of.
What's your first hip hop experiences growing up in terms of maybe musically or just culturally or whatever you can feel is kind of the first touch?
Cardboard box. I remember looking out of my window because again, like I got here, I'm 6 years old, so you ain't going out the house. I got 2 Nigerian parents, like. But I remember like for whatever, I don't know what it was. They were done or whatever, but I just remember looking at the cardboard box that they just finished breakdancing on. Okay. And there were always like random cardboard boxes left. We weren't exactly the most sanitational medium. So when we were done doing what we were spinning on the boxes, they left the boxes there. So I just remember always seeing like open cardboard boxes being left like on the corner where kids just finished dancing kind of thing. And for whatever reason, like just those kind of memories stuck out. I was Nas looking out of that. It wasn't a project window, but I was looking out of the window just and seeing and just being enamored by the culture.
Wow. So that's even before the music. You saw the the breakdancing.
And to the point where, like, even in 4th grade, I guess I had a progressive teacher, and we would all stand in line and do the entire chain, so the whole class
was pop locking,
together. This is 4th grade, Excuse me. So, like, yeah, those are like the initial memories of hip hop, not realizing what it would grow to mean to me.
Okay, excellent. You mentioned you had 2 Nigerian parents, which makes you a Nigerian American. Right, obviously, right? Okay,
even though I was born in Liberia, right? it's yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
so it's all over the place right now.
All right, good. So we'll get into that in a second. I like Obiese.
Yes, sir.
I got it.
Nailed it.
Right? Okay. So 2 Nigerian parents, right? And you said you actually, I guess before coming to this country, you came through Liberia.
Yeah, I was born in Liberia.
Oh, you were born in Liberia.
Mhm.
Okay. So tell me, what's the experience of being an first generation African American of continental African descent, right? How is there a nuance in terms of maybe the approach to, or are there any differences, if you will, or anything that stands out that might be?
I mean, it's definitely different from a culture perspective in that you're trying to assimilate to a culture that you're being told not to assimilate to.
Okay.
But you kind of have no choice. Like, okay, I've always spoken English, but as an example, you've always spoken Italian. Somebody throws you in a place where everybody speaks English and then tells you not to speak English. Like, how is that supposed
How's that
to
gonna
work?
It's just not gonna work.
You know what I mean? So it's
Right.
like, I'm trying to make friends, but they're speaking English. I'm trying to do certain things, but they're speaking
Right.
English. So essentially, my parents have a culture. It's a very strict, it's a Nigerian culture, strict
Right.
education, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So all that having fun, going out with your friends, I'm trying to assimilate, I'm trying to fit in, and not to say it was bad, wrong, right, wrong, or indifferent. It's just
Right.
a difference in culture. So when everyone's being fresh and doing what kids do who are of American culture at that point in time,
Right.
you're not necessarily doing that. So you kind of have to develop other ways to fit in, so to speak, besides the norm.
Okay.
So like there's always kind of it's almost like you have three different child, like not even three, but two different childs. Like, all right, this is me as an African child, and this is me as an American child, and I have to find a balance between the two, as I just try to grow up and
Right.
fit. So it's a lot of it's a very nuanced,
Right.
like, existence, basically.
Right. Okay. Hip hop on the continent,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
The African continent, obviously.
Mhm.
Right. What is the? Are you close to what's happening, or at least do you pay attention to what's happening on the continent?
I'm starting to. I'll be 100% honest. Like
Okay.
I grew up here, man. I've been rooted in American hip hop.
So your experience has
I've been
been
immersed-
purely
yeah, been
Brooklyn
purely
and
American.
New York and American.
Mhm.
Okay.
But like the more I listen to it, the more I get exposed to it, the more I'm like, I need to pay a lot more attention to it. And I've actually started going down that path of, all right, who exactly is this guy? Who exactly is that guy?
Okay.
Wow, like these guys are phenomenal.
Are they coming from America, or are they actually on the continent?
All over, actually.
All over?
I can't pronounce his last name, but Toby is from Texas, if
Right.
I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
Stogie T's from South Africa.
Okay.
Like the Blitz ambassador, he's from New York. I mean, but he's Ghanaian,
Okay.
and there are definitely a bunch of other, like DeVito. He's basically he's on everyone's, like the hook guy on everybody's song now.
Right.
So like it's one of those things where it's getting to the point where it can't be ignored.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that I am African and I produce hip hop and I've been immersed in the culture, like it's
Right.
almost an insult to my own culture to not be. And to
not connect.
each his own. Like I'm not
Right.
saying if you're African, you absolutely have to listen to like whatever,
Right.
do your thing. But for me personally,
There's
I think
an obvious connection.
there's an obvious
And
literal
relation.
and direct connection there. So I really want to see what that is. Like I
Okay.
really want to explore that.
Are there any projects you're working on?
I mean, there are a few projects I'm working on actually. There's one I started on, and I've for the most part produced the majority of the music for it. Now it's just a question of finding the right artist to fit into the for the right
into
song.
the project.
That I hope to be out next year. There's another project that I literally just started working on too. We're talking about getting into it. One World Fest Global. They're basically trying to do something similar, but not specifically just Africa. Just hip hop as an international. So yeah, I'm basically about to start working with them, doing some production for them, for their artists, seeing where we can take it, how we can grow and develop that.
And specifically, and I'm going to stick with just Africa and your thoughts,
Mhm.
right? And hip hop. What benefit can hip hop be to Africa, or Africa be to hip hop?
That's a great question.
I know it's kind of broad and kind
No.
of.
It's broad, but it's also very specific. Like I think the impact that hip hop has had on American Africans is the same impact it would have on African Americans, if that makes any sense. In that It's a teaching tool. It's relatable. It's cool. And you have the ability to speak your own voice without it having to be translated for you.
Okay.
And that's a very empowering tool as a youth, no matter where you are.
Right.
It's one of those things where no one wants to hear what kids say unless it's in a song. Then you at least give it a try. You may dismiss it still, but you at least give it a try, provided it's in a medium that you're okay accepting. There really are no age barriers. Like, I whip my hair back and forth is something that adults knew about, but you wouldn't know about that if it were a little kid walking up and down. But it's in song format. They played it on the radio, so you at least gave it a listen. So something as empowering as someone listening to you when it seems like the whole world doesn't care what you have to say, that will empower any child anywhere, especially people who have been historically and systematically disenfranchised.
Right.
So that's the benefit of hip-hop to Africa. The benefit of hip-hop as it relates Africa to America, I'm sorry, I'm African.
Mm-hmm.
I know there are a lot of very, 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 very intelligent Africans out there who master the language, study the language. I know there are a lot of creative Africans out there. So it's one of those things where, like, and I wrote an article a long time ago called the NFL, but it stood for the Nigerian Football League.
Okay.
And it was speaking to like the gradual trickle of how all these Africans were starting to gradually become very prevalent in sports, like in football. I spoke about it in
NBA,
basketball too.
Right?
And it's to the point right now where I'm laughing at all these announcers struggle with these last names. But I'm like, the minute I see 4 vowels and an O, I'm like,
Right.
bro, you're Nigerian. Like I see it now, and when I wrote the article in 2010, it was to the point where there were like 4 Nigerians on every single football team.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just like, okay, if you give people with a particular skill set a particular opportunity, it will be a particular rap.
Right.
So I want to see what my people do with the opportunity because I know how my people get down.
Right. Okay.
So that's why I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And if it is what it is, Americans who love hip hop, how the hell will you not love hip hop coming from?
They gonna feel it. They gonna feel it.
They can't not. It's gonna be creative. Right. It's gonna be unique, and it's still going to be something that is of you. It came from you. It's just basically like it's a back and forth. Like it's a literal back. Oh, word, y'all did that. Let me show you what I could do with your word. Okay. Like so, I really think that in terms of it just starting in New York, and then we gave then the South. I'm sorry, the West Coast had it. Right. Then the South had it. Now we've kind of been playing this.
Yeah.
Now let's see if we throw the ball over there.
Exactly.
See what they're gonna throw back.
Exactly.
So to me, it's almost like it's a no-brainer, and I don't see how it can fail.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. Right?
So am I.
As I was telling you, one of my partners, and rest his soul, right? Wisdom Tex. He was from Ghana, right? So we worked together a lot, and I learned a lot about the culture through at least the Ghanaian culture, through his Ghana 4, right? That's what we always say, Ghana 4. But through the experience we had making music and the art form. So I'm looking forward to that Pan-African connection through hip hop. Yeah. Now you said something about hip hop and the empowerment principles that it has for the youth, right? I'm a grown man. Right, and you're a grown man, maybe almost as grown. It might be a little growner than you, right? We don't have to disclose, but it might be a little growner than you. But nonetheless, right? Hip hop, as I like to say, even this platform here is grown up, right? Adult hip hop conversations, and because I think there's a feeling sometimes that once you hit a certain age, you kind of should mature or outgrow hip hop, right? Where I feel like, no, if I'm hip hop, and I'm going to expand it as I grow and I mature and take it with me, right? How do you feel hip hop can continue empowering adults, like ourselves, and how can we be continue to be as influential and help to steer the culture?
So, as an adult. You must do what adults do, and that is grow. Right. I don't mean it physically, I mean it from a mental perspective. Okay. there was probably a day where you were in the club and you went, nah. I've done this mad times. I've been here 15 minutes.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense to me. I still want to have fun, but having fun within the context of a club is not going to cut it for me because I've been doing it since I was 18 and now I'm whatever. So that doesn't mean you start bashing club life, hating everything about the club, hating the people, because you were just doing it. So you can't turn into a hypocrite the day you say, you know what, it's not for me.
Right.
You have to start doing what you deem adult fun. So now if you want to start taking trips or going mountain climbing or doing other things that you can still have fun, but it's not necessarily the same thing you used to do as a child, then you're still going to be able to grow with whatever it is that you're still going to have fun and grow at the same time. With that said, if what you were doing at 15 was arguing with your homeboys over lyrics in the park while drinking a 40,
right,
and now you're 40, mad that the lyrics aren't what they were because you used to argue about Rakim, and now you're mad that Offset ain't Rakim, and why can't they do X, Y, and Z?
Right.
You don't realize you're in the club bashing the DJ, mad at the way people are dressed.
Right.
It's time for you to leave the club.
Yeah, you're old dude in the club, right?
And hip-hop is more expansive than just listening to it. We were kind of groomed to listen to it. We were groomed to consume the medium in a specific way. Me personally, I came up with 3. Hot 97 BLS, 107.5. After a while, 107.5 checked out. 98.7 checked out.
Right.
It was Hot 97. Now that it's 20 years later and there's 1,000,001 different mediums, I get my adult friends coming to me saying the radio is trash. And I'm like, bro, you're still listening to Funkmaster Flex in 2018. Have you looked at SoundCloud? Have you looked at YouTube? Have you looked at the million other mediums that your favorite quote-unquote genre is now available before you start saying it's trash when the same medium for the same reasons for what they're going to play what's popular and they're going to play what's directed towards the youth. Now that you're an adult, why are you in the club yelling at the DJ for playing Mickey Mouse songs?
Right.
Redman put out an album, Wu-Tang put out an album, Meth put out an album, but because you're looking at Hot 97 to play your favorite joint, hip-hop sucks. You're not and this is one of my biggest pet peeves with hip-hop. If, let's just say it's an election, I spend all my time bashing you. You spend all your time bashing you. Who's advocating for you? So if the new kids are all about Yachty and whoever they're supporting and all their artists, and you're all about hating Yachty and hating Offset and hating the Migos and hating all the new artists,
right,
who's championing Redman, Rakim, who's promoting their shit, pardon my French, where's their advocate?
Okay.
No one's advocating for the people that you swear you love. So love looks like love. If you're going to love hip-hop, love hip-hop. Telling me how much you hate the new hip-hop is not love. That's new hate.
That's just, right. That's just hate and
That's
being
just
mad,
hate. That's
right?
just hate and being mad. Like, you don't...
Mad you're not a kid anymore, right?
Like, you don't praise your kids by telling them all the stuff that you wish they were. Like, I remember that drawing you did in 4th grade. That was dope. Why can't you do the more drawings like that? Your kid is not going to take that as love.
Right.
So, to my older hip-hop heads, if you absolutely can't stand what's going on today, you don't have to. Go support Redman. Go support Meth.
Right.
Woo. I just went to Wu-Tang's album at Terminal 5, the 25th anniversary. It was me, my other black homeboy, and 90-something% Caucasians. So I don't see. Well, they're frequent most.
Right.
However, and I don't even know if it's a price point thing. I can't say it's a price point thing because I've seen y'all do a lot stupider things with $125.
Right.
Point is, who's supporting the people that you want supported if it's not you?
Right. Now that, you know what, that's an interesting point. Just in, as far as black people as a whole, being, we've been known not to continue to support, right? our own or those that we grew up with, right? That a lot of times, we don't, like you said, $125, but a lot. Who was there at the? Who was there, right? But that's kind of been an issue, we've been hearing about within the black community for a long time. But speaking of going that route in terms of hip hop and adulting and the culture, right? So this platform, President Hip Hop platform, is supposed to be educational. It's geared to be educational and political, right? And artistic at the same time, right? So in terms of hip hop as a culture or as a group of people, right? Under that umbrella, do you think there can be? I think there's been experimentation of political influence, right? Societal influence on how to be able to wield. We know that there's commercial influence. Like everybody uses hip hop, for commercial means and to sell this and that. Do you think there is room for it to be to wield more political influence?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think it's everything. My president is black. Like Oprah was a big part of Obama's push.
Right.
And again, in every, I think everything you're going to need a representative in every arena. You're going to need the guy in the corporate suit who says, I support this guy. You're going to need the guy who's on a certain level going, yeah, I support this guy. Then you're going to need the dude in the corner going, yo, that's my nigga. So, in a very loosely translated way,
right.
Jay-Z was Barack, yo, that's my nigga, fuck with that dude.
Right.
Kind of thing. So like he was absolutely
sort of the political action committee.
He was the pack. He was the hood pack. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? So like, hip hop has always been, and now that you see it, you see these political candidates who make sure that they stop off at Charlemagne the God show on the way to whatever they're doing.
Well, that's sort of like
Kamala, Hillary. That's what you do now. So as it relates to, everybody wants the, and I hate it, the black vote. Like we're some sort of monolith, but whatever. They're trying to go after the black vote, and they're using what the blacks gravitate to, which is our music. So again, if we learn, and I think we kind of, it's been learned, it just hasn't been channeled, hasn't been done enough for someone to be like, okay, that's formula for how you get hip hop to be a political tool. Okay. It's a unifying mechanism.
Right.
Like every time you get dragged to a Kanye concert, he'll take X amount of minutes out of his concert to put whatever his political spin on it. So he already has you congregated. Right. Whether you choose to listen to it or not, as a unifying, gathering tool, you're already kind of winning. The first step is being there. Okay. So, like, if you don't support it, if you support it, if you don't support it, that's different. But the fact that he has you, because of hip hop, in a confined arena where the messages need to sink into a few people and then have them go propagate it. Mm-hmm. So, as it relates to that, and hip hop for the most part is a political tool. Like it was used to put out political messages, fight Chuck D, fight the power, like all be your father to your child. Right. You name a political situation, there's a hip hop song that speaks to it. So it's always been a political tool, just a question of honing it. And again, I think that happens when the people who are who grew up in hip hop get to the age where they start running for office. Then you're going to see, and then you're going to start seeing hip hop people who are hip hop artists running for office. Will Smith has a very good chance of being a lot of things right now if he decided to run.
No question. Definitely. What do you think, right? A hip-hop artist, say a Will Smith, just, or somebody of the like who is a hip-hopper, maybe not even particularly an artist, but of the culture, influential. What do you, being a president or being, in a very, very prominent legislative position, right, political position, what do you see that doing for the country? I'm talking specifically here, the United States, right, and specifically for the black community.
It's going to take more than a figurehead. Okay. However, the figurehead who's the most listened to, the figurehead who has the podium, has an ability to influence the people who can legislate. So, having someone who understands, And again, I think it's one of those things where we say of the hip hop culture, but it's kind of loosely defined. So
Right.
if we tried to define the hip hop culture, you may need a few more hours and a lot more
Right.
film. So like with that said, like someone who's from the hip hop culture understands what the hip hop community is going through. And with that said, I don't think you need to be from the hip hop community to understand what the hip hop community is going through, because it speaks to a specific disenfranchised, underserved people. So if you understand, if you've lived it, and not even lived it, because there are people who lived it who are ignorant to it. Mm-hmm. If you're empathetic to it, you have the ability to carry on a message that would be beneficial to where the culture was created, which was in the underserved communities in urban neighborhoods in America. So I would love it if you're helping my people, chances are you're speaking the hip hop language.
Point blank, period. There it is, right? Maybe we get one of these political candidates on a mixtape, right? They could spit the campaign, right?
I would love it.
Kind of all right. Okay, so like you said, I would love to get into the cultural aspect of, but you said we need a whole lot more tape, and maybe we can come back and really get into that,
yeah.
right? Okay, I want to get into briefly a little bit of producer talk. Right? Because you are a producer. You're a writer, an author. We talked about your book. But you make hot beats.
Thank you.
You know, you're a dope producer. What's your weapon of choice?
Machine. I'm using my Triton as a controller now, and I'm hanging out in Logic Pro 10.
Okay.
I'm tired of Pro Tools charging me $1 million every few years just to upgrade. Yeah.
Okay. So I understand. What did you start with?
Started with MPC 2000, then 2000 XL, then I learned how to produce on the MPC, but my first piece of equipment was a Triton, and that's because it had the ability to do. I couldn't afford both. I couldn't afford a keyboard and a drum machine, and the Triton had the ability. It was a digital audio workstation, so I had the ability to make music inside that machine. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna get the all-in-one. So I started producing on the Triton. A few years later, I bought the MPC, so I was basically doing both. Then went to Reason, and now I ended up on, like I said, I'm on Machine right now.
Okay, excellent. I haven't used the Machine.
You haven't?
But no. But I just got. I started out as an Ensoniq EPS guy,
ASR,
right? Then did the ASR thing, and even I hated that machine, a little ASR-X. It was the only one I had for a little while, but I learned how to bang out on that. Then I went to the MPC, and now I'm rocking on the Renaissance, right? So I know they have the new MPC X's or that, which looks crazy, but I'm still rocking on the Renaissance.
Whatever works.
Exactly. Who have you produced? You know, who have you been your most influential producers or your favorite producers, and who are some of the people you produce for?
Favorite producers: Dre, Just Blaze, Timbaland. Yeah, I mean that. If you're listening, you'll probably hear a little bit of those dudes and everything. Okay. Like Timbaland swing, Just Blaze drums, and just the business of it, and Dre's bigness.
Right.
I know that's not a word, but
right,
like
listen, it's hip hop, man. You know, listen, right?
Yeah, like the way a Dre.
You can make your words up.
Yeah, the analogy I keep on using is that Dre songs sound like they were mixed in space.
Yeah, exactly.
Like how the hell do you?
How did you get that?
In the club.
And since he came out, he's been like that, right?
Like it's not a lot going on, but it's so huge. So it's like those are the kind of. I don't know how he does it, so it's my mind trying to figure out how to get there.
Right.
But those are like the three most influential people. Like as it relates to people I've produced for, DV Alias Christ. I've done work with Nas, Damian Marley, and I guess a bunch of up and coming artists, a bunch of indie artists too. So but yeah, I'm still working,
still banging them out.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay, excellent. Okay, last two questions for you. Right? Do you have? Let's talk to the audience, talk to the hip hop universe out there. Do you have a message or anything that you want to say to them that would be of note?
First and foremost, in lieu of recent circumstances, R.I.P. to Nipsey Hussle and the entire family in the West Coast and everybody who's grieving that man, mourning that man. First and foremost, that was a black man, that was an African man, and that was a man. So
Absolutely.
I don't care what he did and anything more. And above that, that was a good man. That was an artist. That was a community man. That was a man who was trying to change his life and the life of other people.
No
So
question.
first and like I said, R.I.P. And then I think with that said, what I would like to see the hip hop community do is kind of take more ownership, more accountability, and I mean that in every sense of the word. Not just lyrically. Everybody has their own opinion on what you should and should not be saying lyrically. Fine, you can take accountability for that. You cannot take accountability for that, but you need to start taking accountability for all the surrounding components of it. To the elder statesmen of hip hop, if you don't want to rap anymore, there's an entire business that surrounds this medium and genre that you created. Maybe it's time to take a step from behind the mic and start being the guy who these young kids are coming to for advice, whose studios that they're using, who's providing. If you don't believe they can rap and you aren't the one teaching them how to rap, where are they going to get the skill set to rap?
Right.
So you can't take a step away from it, see it deteriorate as you call it, and then be like, see, I told you. All that pointing the finger and taking a step back from your quote unquote culture that you literally physically created, and then abandoned in the street, and then you're mad that somebody picked it up. You left it.
Right.
Don't be mad that somebody picked it up unless you want to nurture it.
Okay.
So again, to my generation, I don't want to hear about what you don't like anymore. If you don't like it, change the channel. Every time you find something that you don't like, find something that you do like and champion that.
And then bang out.
Post
on
it.
that.
Put it on your gram, put it on your Facebook. Yo, you heard this song. Do that. Like, kind of fight negativity with literal positivity. Not saying I hate that is not fighting negativity. You're throwing negativity at negativity.
Okay, there you go.
Like, so that would be my...
It's totally destructive. All around the
no
table.
one
Right.
wins. No one wins. All you're going to do is foster more. Even if people agree with you. Yeah, I hate them too.
Right.
So now you have a crew of people who hate too, and you feel good because you are united in your hatred for someone who looks like you, who's trying to make a way. It's not working.
So there's positive and other avenues to channel that energy on that are worthy of your taste.
Learn how to be positive before you start saying you're a positive person.
Understood.
So like that would be my, and then to the youth, get better, man. If not even get better, but if you're going to carry on a torch, carry on a tradition, understand what you're carrying on. Understand what you're doing. Like, it's not just a question of, it's fun, it's absolutely fun, it's absolutely all fun and games and enjoyable, but you better know that as a producer, why does it sound like that? Where did it come from? What are they trying to do? What is a producer? What are you trying to do? A lot of producers don't even know what the job entails or what they're trying to do. Oh, you're supposed to play everything, and if you sample, you're in a producer. No, bro, you're trying to be a musician because you don't know what a producer is. A producer's a coach.
Right.
Bill Parcells is not the fastest, strongest, the biggest person on the team, but he knew how to put all the pieces together to get a ring.
And that's what a producer is.
Period. You produced the product.
Right.
So again, if you're going to be a rapper or an MC, understand what that means, how it developed, and then take it your own direction. But don't just say, oh, words rhyming over a beat, that's what a rapper is. That's the end result. Go back to where it started. So essentially, everybody has so much work to do that nobody has the time to be pointing the finger at anybody else telling them what they should be doing.
There it is. I can agree with that, my brother.
So,
okay. One more question.
mm-hmm.
What would you say would be the agenda, right, of the main agenda of the president of hip hop?
The main agenda of the president of hip hop? It would be the main agenda of the president of anything.
Which is?
Making sure that your constituent base is okay, getting better, and having their problems addressed. So, the president of a country, president of a company, sometimes you can't tell the difference, but for the most part, it is the same thing. Where are we now? Where would we like to be? How can I get us there while remediating the issues that we have and essentially championing what we do well?
Excellent. All right, my man. Anything else? Did I miss anything? Did we kind of?
No, I mean,
right.
I think you basically covered it. Like, I'd love to come back and talk, but I'm fairly
good.
loquacious today.
There we go. All right. So I usually ride out with one of my beats, right? But I'd like to ride out with one of your beats.
Okay.
All right. So what I'm gonna end up doing is getting the beat from you if you're okay with that, and then we'll slide it underneath.
Absolutely.
For this outro.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, right? Thank you, Hip Hop Universe, Hip Hop Globe, Hip Hop World, for tuning in to The Suite. I am Courtland W. Hankins III, the president of hip hop, and we were here with the honor of being with Mr. Alfred Obiese.
There you go. You're professional.
Took me a half a second, but I caught it again.
As long as you get it.
All right. Thank you very much for coming through,
Thanks
Al.
for having me.
I
really
appreciate
had a
it.
good time.
All right,
Thank you
and
so much.
I want to have you here again because you have a whole lot to say and a great perspective. Thank you to my production assistant over here.
PA,
All
stand
right.
up. I used to be a PA.
There it is. A shout out to Brooklyn.
Always.
from a
Shout out to the Bronx.
Right?
It started somewhere and ended somewhere else, but it started somewhere.
There it is.
So there's love for everyone.
And we're looking forward to what the motherland has to contribute to this wonderful, wonderful culture.
Absolutely.
All right, there it is, y'all. Peace.
The Suite. The Suite.
The Suite with Courtland W. Hankins III, the president of hip hop. The Suite is directed and produced by Courtland W. Hankins III. Music brought to you by Smart Monkey Productions. The Suite is shot on location at Mantic International Studios in the South Bronx, USA. This is hip hop. We move with a divine energy, purposefully inspired to recreate balance, equity, and a more natural state of being. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Suite.
Play everything? So you play everything or you sample too?
I'm sampling.
Oh, okay.
Right, and so records and all that I can't play. I can play, I can doodle, do little bass lines here and there, but once in a while I've gotten pretty decent with a simple melody, and little simple chords, but I'm a sampler.
Yeah.
I'm a chop in the screw.
Yeah, no, it took me a while because I came up, I refused to ever call myself a musician.
Right.
Because
same here.
I've seen musicians.
Right.
So I played the trumpet for I don't know, 5 years. I played the drums for 3-4 years, baritone, all that shit. So I can get around a lot of instruments, you know what I mean? But I'm not gonna call myself a musician.
Right.
And I'm not gonna spend the time trying to become a musician because that's not the same job as becoming a producer.
Right. Well, I tell you, right. I never played nothing.
Yeah.
So, even me getting into, producing, beat making, was just by divine accident.
Yeah.
But I started, right, kind of, when I first would say I'm a musician, it felt funny, right? It almost felt like I have to give you an asterisk.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a hip hop musician. I do the EMPC electronic, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and then I just, said, what?
You are.
I'm a musician.
You're a musician.
Right?
Yeah.
I make music, right? I use the tools, certain tools, but I'm a musician, right? So, I stand on that. I can't say that there's not still a tinge when I say it, right? That is, I can say it real, but there's still a little tinge that says.
I say it with my chest, but not the head.
Right. But I think I lean towards if an argument is to be made. I definitely lean way more towards the side that
Yeah. And the thing is, the reason why I don't want, because I respect what those things are so much.
I understand.
I don't want to call myself that.
Right.
With that said, I know tons of musicians that can't compose
Right.
So just because you can play the shit out of something,
Right.
if somebody took away that sheet music, can you create the shit out of something?
Exactly.
Different fucking animal
Right.
altogether. So like, I have no
Right.
problem saying I'm not that, but I have no problem saying I am a motherfucking producer and a damn good one kind of thing. So,
Right.
so
Understood. And it's funny you said because and like you said, it's all perspective. But it was musicians, right, that I've worked with that would say, "Oh, you're a musician," right? So in terms of just even hearing that from musicians, and I'm like, "You guys can play the ass off."
Yeah.
You know? And they said, "No, you're a musician. You're a musician." I was like, I hope that. And I was
Yeah,
like,
nice.
so I can see it from both ways.
And I mean,
so
and again, we
he's
straight.
not a musician like that.
Yeah, like I'm not a guitar player.
Right,
Like
right.
that, you know what I mean?
Right.
A musician is more than just being a player of a musical
Right.
instrument. If you take it back in the day, everybody had a specific function. There was a composer. There was an arranger.
Right.
Like nobody did anything, but and that's what I'm saying. We go so far from where the shit stems from. Nobody did anything by them fucking selves.
Right.
No one. But now all of a sudden, 30 years later, you're expected to do. You gotta play it all, mix it all,
Right.
put it all together.
Spit it all,
When
right.
Motown was a room of fucking 80 niggas on rotation.
Yep. Exactly.
So like we really need to understand what it is so that we can stop having so much like it wasn't until, like I said, my music got better recently because my girlfriend was like, yo, if that's what it is, then what's the holdup? Like if sampling is what it is, why do you feel even the slightest bit guilty about not being able to play every single thing?
Right.
And I'm like, I'm gonna marry you.
Right.
A, but B,
Right.
I'm about to fuck shit up.
Right.
So I really started
Right.
like going,
Yeah,
yo, I don't give a fuck. I like the sample.
Right.
Let me see what I can turn this shit
Exactly.
into.
Let me bang it out.
And then the shit has been. My boys have been like, yo, son, what the fuck is going on? Your shit got better. I'm like,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I've never had this much confidence in my life because before I wouldn't just standing behind that shit somehow makes it better.
Yeah. Yeah.
From jump though, not when you press play, from when you fucking find the sound. Like yeah, nigga, like this is it. So you can hear the confidence in the music, and that's something
definitely.
that
The spirit comes, and that
comes
spirit,
through.
that
It
spirit
comes through. So
translates,
it-
and that's at the end of the day what it's all about. If you can translate the spirit that's inside there, and if the spirit inside there is dope, then no matter what you're doing or using,
But
it's
until
gonna-
you have
it's
that
gonna
understanding,
translate.
you'll always have that apprehension.
Yeah.
So that's why motherfuckers need to understand what there's a lot of dudes in the booth going, I ain't no real rapper, man.
Right. And you hear it.
And you hear it in their voice.
flow, you hear it
And then
in
there's
their
certain
voice,
dudes that's
you
like,
hear it
yo,
the whole
man,
thing.
what? I'm the
Right.
greatest rapper that ever rapped. I invented
Right.
this shit.
And you
And you will
basic.
hear it in their fucking voice too.
And it may be the most basic of lyrics and
But
rhymes,
9 times out of 10,
But
the motherfucker who thinks he's the greatest rapper ever did the work.
you're right about that.
That's the thing about,
Right
and that's
about
what I'm saying. You say it with your chest when you've actually done the research behind it.
That is true. But I've seen some too who just, maybe personality type.
Gotcha, just exude that confidence.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you hear it on, the vibration comes through on the recording. And it's because that's how they step to the mic. Right?
And the funny thing is, one of the biggest ingredients of hip hop is fuck it.
Yeah, you're right.
All of it is fuck it. These ain't instruments. I know, they're 2 turntables.
Right.
You ain't supposed to do that with a microphone.
Right.
You ain't supposed to do that with a record. You ain't supposed to do that with none of that shit. Fuck it.
Yep.
At all points
Right.
in time. Fuck it. I don't give a fuck what I'm
Let it
supposed
go.
to do.
Let it rock.
I
Let it
did
do
it though,
what
right?
do. Exactly.
So yeah, man, but it took a while for me to develop fuck it, but my nigga, fuck it.
Yeah, it took a while. I was probably the most, one of the most insecure, and I guess that's creatives and
Yeah.
a lot of times. But even within that, right? Because with me, it's interesting because sometimes insecurity
Cat man.
works for me, right? Artistically. Right? For whatever reason, a lot of times when I'm feeling a little, not as confident and brash, that's when I make some of my best stuff, oddly enough, right? So, but I'm backwards in a lot of ways.
No. The reason why I agree / disagree with you, because this is another pervading conversation I've always had. Fear is a fantastic motivator.
Yeah.
but it can't come close to confidence.
You're right about. You're 100% right about
Like
that.
motherfuckers, like, and when I'm having these discussions, cats will be saying shit like, "Yo, Jordan's number one motivator was fear. That nigga got 6 rings." And my answer is always, what if his motivator was confidence? How many rings would he have? Because confidence would have beat Detroit.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
they would have beat them niggas because he was scared of them niggas.
Right. And that's why he didn't beat him until.
So it's one of those things where, like, fear will always be a great motivator, but I've seen night and day when the difference between fear and confidence is, picture you approaching a shorty and you're afraid and you still get the number, versus approaching a shorty and you know you got the number before you even got there.
Right. Oh, it's a big difference.
And you know what I mean? Like, forgive me, I know you're in the room, so. So like, yeah, it's just you just move different when you know you got it. Man.
And you know what? At the end of the day, everyone wants confidence. You don't want fear, right? So like, I'm not saying
You know what I mean? Like, you're doing all this shit to get over the fear.
Right.
So why are you using the fear as a motivator to do all this shit?
Right. Exactly.
But again, it's all learning and growing, man. So like,
Yep. So there it is, man. So what you gonna do, man?
yeah, I'm fitting to head back to BK.
Okay. You know where the train is? You wanna lift to the train?
Oh, nah, I'd rather walk in the cold.
Okay. What? I'd rather be fearful, right? I'll stick with the fear.
You don't mind.